Hello and welcome to my first tutorial, of which I hope will be many, and for this tutorial I thought I'd go through a new feature of Laravel 5.2, which is the token-based API authentication middleware. And if you're like me and you've created a few APIs in Laravel in your time, token-based ones, then you'll find this very useful. It'll save you quite a bit of time. So I'm going to jump straight in. I've already created my Laravel project. It does need to be 5.2 or higher, so make sure you check that. Make sure you update Composer before you start this, if you haven't already. So first thing I'm going to do is just create my auth route. So if you didn't know, it's very easy to do. So PHP RSN make auth, and that'll create a bunch of views and update your root file. And if I serve this now, I think I've already got this open, so yeah, if we refresh this, it should still be working. Yep. So we could actually migrate now and register a new user straight away, but we won't do that yet. First thing we've got to do, you go back into the code. Oh yeah, you'll actually see that it's added an extra web middleware group, and so you can just go ahead and delete the other one for now. We'll be coming back to this roots file a little bit later, so you might as well leave that open if you've not got it open. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go into the controllers, go into the auth controller, and go down to this create method. So this is what creates a new user when you register. So we need to add the API token here, so that the user has always got an API token automatically when they register. So we can use one of Laravel's help functions, called string random, and we're going to make it 60 because we're going to have a 60 character API token. So save that. You can go ahead and close that. We're not going to be going back into that. Now you need to go into the migration for the user, and you're going to want to add the API token here as well. So table, going to be a string, same again, API underscore token, and 60, and we're going to make it unique. Obviously, if it's a random string that's big, it's probably never going to be duplicated, but we never know how we're going to be generating these API keys in the future, so we'll make it unique and make it a key just to be on the safe side. So you can go ahead and close that. Now we need to go into the actual model, and we need to make it fillable. So we can go API token. I did call that token, didn't I? Yeah. Being a little bit paranoid there. Yeah, API underscore token, and make it hidden because we don't want to be passing it around. And again, you can go and close that. So now we can actually migrate. So PHP artisan, migrate. I can actually spell. Okay, so if we take a look at take a look at this, we can see yes, it's got the API token in there. Okay, so that's just showing you the users table. So after we've done that, we can create a user. So if we open this back up, I'm going to do this off screen because it's going to auto fill in my email, and I'd rather not put that on YouTube just yet. So we'll do test@test.com, password. Okay, so I've just registered a new user using that, and go into data, we should see that, and yes, and we've got an API key. So that's the only time we're actually going to be needing credentials, as in the username and password, just for register one. Everything else will be done with the API key. So now we're going to create our, before we do that actually, we'll set up the roots. So this is going to be the route into our notes. I've got it copied here, so I'll bring this up, go into roots, and I'll put that here. So we're going to have a prefix of API, so a route for the API is going to, on this machine, look something like this, API, and then for this note resource, which we're going to create in a minute, it's going to be note. So if this was a GET request, it would return the index method, which I'll show you in a second, in the controller, sorry, the index method in the controller, and if it was a post request it would return the store, well, it would call the store method in that controller. But I'll show you that a little bit in a little bit more detail in a second. So this is really where the magic happens, this middleware, this auth API. What this is doing is telling Laravel to make sure that there's either a get or a post variable with this HTTP request, which is called API_token, and that variable contains a valid token that we've already seen in the user database. So these routes will only be accessible when that token is supplied. So we're going to go ahead and set up our migration model, and let me see my desktop there a little bit. We're going to set up our migration model and controller. So we'll do the migration first. PHP artisan migration. Make migration, and we'll call it create notes table. Okay. And if we open the code again and we go into that migration, and I'll do a little bit of copying here just to save time. So it will be called notes, and I think I've got this here as well actually, yeah. Okay, so this migration, give me a second. Yeah, so this migration it's basically going to have, well, this table is basically going to have the normal ID, primary key, timestamps. This is the actual note, which we're going to call text, and then it's going to have a foreign key, which is the user ID. So that will reference the ID on the users table, so we can check who owns the note. Next, we're going to need to make the model, aren't we? So go back into your console, PHP artisan make model note. Yep, and we should see it here. Yeah, and then we just need to fill in the fillable and hidden, which I've also got handily here to copy and paste. So fillable is going to be text and user ID, and I've just hidden the user ID from the JSON responses. You don't have to, but you know, that's just to be on the safe side. And once we've done that, we need to make the controller. So once again, let's just make life easy for us. Doing that, controller note controller. Cool. Right, so we should see that controller now. Note controller, yeah. Oh, tell you what I've done there. I made a little mistake. Let's just delete that because we want a resource controller. So we need to add the resource option. So we do that now. There we go. We should have a controller with all of these lovely resource methods in it. Okay, so we'll start off with the store one. I'll just migrate the database actually, just to check that's all working fine. So PHP artisan migrate. Hopefully it should all be fine. Yeah. So now we can go ahead and actually start fleshing out this controller. So I'm going to start with the create method. So got this here somewhere. Yeah, so yeah, of course. So first of all, make sure you're using auth, we're going to be using it, and note, which is the model we created. You don't need to do this, you could just use it in line, but I prefer to do it this way. I've got this written as well, somewhere to copy from. There it is. So do note that now with Laravel you don't actually have access to a input facade, you do it by passing in this request object, and then you get the input from that. Fairly simple. And so once we've got this note input, we're going to actually create, save that, we're going to create this new note entry in the database. So the text is going to be note. I should probably change this variable to text, but it doesn't matter. Pardon me. We're going to create this new note. Text is going to be whatever we passed in, and we're going to check that the user is authenticated for this sorry, no, we're not. We're gonna store the authenticated user's ID into the user ID field, so that we can, in the future, we can authenticate that this note does belong to the authenticated user. So with the new API, new token API, you need to use this guard method and pass in just a string containing API into it, and that'll tell Laravel that instead of using the normal credential username and password based authentication, that we're going to use this new API one. So that will effectively store the user that belongs to the token that we're passing. So we can see that now. Oops. So if I open up here, I'm just going to clear this just to make life a bit simpler, and we're going to curl just to check this is working. Check that this is working. We're going to make a curl. So I'm just going to copy this API token first because I need this into this string. Okay, so I'll copy that. Okay, so we're going to make this curl request to the server. I think everything should be set up now. And basically, this is just going to create a post request. It's going to have a note set as test note, so that's going to be the actual text field. That's what's going to be. That's what the text field in the database is going to be set up for this note. And then you can see the API token I've just copied, and this can be, this can be either a get or set variable, get or post variable, and then this is the path. Because it's a post, it'll run the store method. So we're going to run that now. I think, yeah, there we go. So that's returned what it's stored. That's like a return a JSON representation. So if we actually look in here, I'll just refresh this. 1 second. Notes, data, and yeah, so it's stored that note, test note. So that's note 1 with the user ID of 1. So now we're going to actually try and retrieve that note with the API token. If I don't put the API token, this will just fail. You need that for it to pass that root group. So next we'll do the show method. So I'll just copy what I've got here quickly first. So show method, and this is just going to very simply return a JSON response, which is going to be the so we're going to get the note where the ID matches the ID which we're going to put into the URL, and we're going to make sure that we've got the correct user based on the token. So if I just bring up the browser again, so it's going to be, so just to do a GET request quickly, we don't need to do curl, we can just do it in the browser. So API, yeah, note, and then it's note number 1, and then API underscore token. As you can see, I've done this a few times, so we'll do that. Yes, and as you can see, that's returned the correct note. So it's note number 1. Obviously, probably not going to be that useful to have to remember all these different numbers, but it's just a basic example of how you can use this API. So finally, let's just create another note, and then we can create the index method, and then I think that will wrap it up. So if we go here, and if I copy this over, and then we're just going to change this to test note 2, just create another note, and then we're going to go, actually we'll just check that that's worked, F5, yeah, test note 2, so we'll just go into our index method, and I'll copy save it. So here we're going to return a JSON response, and we're just going to say we're going to get all of the notes which match this user's API key. So hopefully we should get a JSON array. If we remove this, because this is going to be a GET request, so hopefully, yes, there we go. We got a JSON array. We'll get an array of these JSON objects, and we've got test note and test note 2. So hopefully that's enough to get you started. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment. If you have any comments, please feel free to comment. And hopefully, yeah, that'll get you started with this new token API function in Laravel 5.2. Please note that you will want to use SSL certificates when doing this on production servers for obvious reasons. And also, you may have noticed that I'm using Windows at the moment. If you're new to web development, or even if you've been doing it for a while, highly recommend that you develop on Linux. I'm using Windows purely because I find it a bit easier for making videos, but I always develop on Linux, and I highly recommend that you do too, just for nothing other than the fact that when you deploy these sorts of services, they're 99.9% of the time going to be running on a Linux server. So more than anything, it's just handy getting used to the Linux commands, the Unix-based commands. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it. There will hopefully be many more tutorials. If you have any recommendations or any requests, then please let me know. And take care, guys.